Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, January 3rd. Can't believe we're already into January. I will say as far as like new releases go, it's kind of a light week. I only got 4 albums to talk about, but I do have a couple others that were supposed to come out a couple of weeks ago. They got delayed until this week. And then I got a bunch of stuff for the Rhino Start Your Year Off Right, which I'll go over at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, it's kind of a light week as far as new releases go. I'm only going to talk about 6 albums. I'm going to put links down below for those. If you're looking forward to grabbing anything else, make sure you drop me a comment. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. As far as like all the Rhino stuff goes, those are only going to be available in your local brick and mortar stores. I'll try to find some links from my local record stores. If you don't have a store in your area, if you want to grab those online, they should be available at some of those stores. One release that was supposed to come out a couple of weeks ago is this Logic Everybody, released in 2017. It was his 3rd studio album. It was a 2 LP release. It's on translucent red vinyl. It's going to be an Amazon exclusive. It's going to run you about $38. It's one of my favorite rap albums of the last probably 10 years or so. You know, it was one of my favorite albums in 2017 when that album came out. I know a lot of people like to hate on Logic, and I think he's made some really crappy albums, but I think this one is by far his best. And it was one that was really hard to get on vinyl for a really long time. When this album was released, they only did like pre-orders through his website, and that was really all they pressed. So if you want to grab a copy of this up until this reissue, you know, you're going to spend a couple $100 for it. Actually, I was lucky enough to grab a used copy at one of my local record stores for like $15 a few years back. So that's one I definitely have on pre-order, even though I have an original pressing of it. And then you've also got Helloween live at Budokan. This is a new live album. It's 3 LP release. So this is going to be on a red and white marble vinyl. There's 2 different versions of this, though. So this is supposed to come out a couple weeks ago. And then there's a orange version that's scheduled for the end of January. This red one is going to run you like $100 or almost $100. The orange one's only going to run you about $70. I don't know what the difference is between those 2 releases. From what I've seen online for like the track listing and everything, they look to be the same. So if you know if there is a difference actually between those releases, just drop me a comment and let me know. These are all recorded in September of 2023. It's going to be available on Blu-ray. I think the Blu-ray and DVD versions of this are going to have the full 2+ hour show, whereas the vinyl version is just a selection of a lot of the tracks from that show. There's also a couple of Blue Note Tone Poet series releases coming out this week. The first one is Jazz Crusaders Freedom Sound. Came out back in 1961. It's going to run you about $39 online. With all these Tone Poet releases, they're always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. They're pressed to RTI. They sound fantastic. They're going to be some of the best sounding jazz albums you're going to be able to pick up. So this album here, first off, I'll say that I thought this was already a Tone Poet release from like 2018 or 2019. Maybe I'm just misremembering it, but I could have swore I've seen it on the list before. But it's a really unique kind of album. So this is technically a soul jazz fusion album. It's got some R&B influences on there also. And it's an album that really kicked off a really successful decade for the group. And as far as fusion albums go, you know, a lot of those soul jazz fusion albums are really, I guess, sometimes hard to listen to is probably the best way to put it. This is much more on the more accessible end of that spectrum. It's one that's definitely worth at least streaming and checking that one out. And the next one is Andrew Hill, Grassroots. Came out back in 1969. It's going to run you about $39 also. Same thing. Mastered by Kevin Gray, pressed RTI. This is going to sound great. So this is a little bit more of an experimental, a little more avant-garde than what Andrew had done previously. It's got a couple of my favorite tracks from Andrew on here. And as far as jazz albums go, I think if you're not a huge jazz fan or if you're like a casual jazz fan, I think there's an album you'll really enjoy. Grassroots and Soul Special, 2 incredible tracks from him, are both on here. But he's joined by Lee Morgan. He's got Booker Irvin on here. He's got Jimmy Ponder, Ron Carter. Great lineup and a great album. So the next 2 releases are ones that, you know, these bands have been around for a really long time, but I've never gotten around to listening to any of their music until just recently. The first one is Fu Manchu, The Return of Tomorrow. So this came out back in June. It's their 13th studio album. It's going to run you about $47. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to be on blue and white splatter vinyl. I think this is an indie exclusive release because I haven't seen this listed anywhere else online other than at my local record stores. So I'm not generally a big fan of stoner rock. I just listened to, what's the name of their album? King of the Road. That was the name of it. I just listened to King of the Road just recently, and I was pretty impressed with it. I thought it was a good album. Their new album got a bunch of really good reviews when it came out earlier this year. So this was released on vinyl earlier this year also when the album came out. It was only like limited to a couple of thousand copies. Looks like it's getting a wider release this week though. But they're definitely one of those bands that, I need to dig a little deeper in their catalogs and listen to their older stuff and listen to a new album. Like I said, it's got a bunch of really good reviews. And then the next one, this is a really interesting album, and I might have to kind of explain myself a little bit with this one. This is Saint Etienne the Night. So this came out back on December 13th. It's their 11th studio album, green splatter vinyl. It's going to run about $30. It is an indie exclusive release. But so both of these indie exclusive releases, I'll put links down below from my local record store if you want to grab a copy of it. But if you're unfamiliar with this band, I know they've been around since the 90s. I think it was late 90s when they formed. And I'm not sure if they've been this way through their entire career. But this is very much like, I guess the best way to describe this album. It is a pop ambient album, which you might think sounds like a terrible combination. But I actually really enjoyed this album. There is some spoken word stuff on here. There is some singing on here. There's some of course it's like over this ambient backdrop, but there's got some like I would say, I guess I would call it like casual life noises on there. There's like doors creaking and things like that. It's a really interesting album. And it's one that I never thought I would like something like this, but it is definitely one I'll listen to again. I probably won't pick up a copy of it on vinyl, but it's definitely one that I think if you never heard this band before, I think it's one at least worth checking out. I'm one of those people that I always try to kind of expand my musical boundaries and really try to find new and interesting stuff to listen to. I would definitely classify this as that. I would never in a million years think that I would like an ambient album, and I really enjoyed this one. So this is the first Friday in January, so this is when the Rhino Start Your Ear Off Right stuff is going to come out. You got a majority of the releases. I think there's 25 or 26 releases total. 12 of them are coming out on the 3rd. I know a lot of people have been really excited for some of these Dream Theater releases, but I'm going to kind of quickly go down through the list here. But the first one you got is Lindsey Buckingham, 20th Century Lindsey. This is going to run you about $100. It's a 4 LP box set. So it's got 3 of his studio albums on there. It's got Law and Order from 81. It's got Going Insane from 84, and then Out of the Cradle from 92. It also comes with a 4th disc with rarities on there. There's like some soundtrack stuff that he did during his career on there also. So I'm not a huge Lindsey Buckingham fan. I haven't listened to any of his albums probably 20 plus years, so I definitely need to go back through his solo stuff. And then you got 4 Dream Theater albums coming out. The first one was Images and Words from 92. It was their 2nd studio album. It's going to be on clear vinyl. It's going to run you about $25. This is the band's first album with James LaBrie on vocals. And it really helped establish Dream Theater as one of the best progressive metal bands around. So you get that. Then you also got Awake coming out, which was released in 94. It was their 3rd album. It's going to be on clear vinyl. 2 LP release, so it's a little bit more. It's going to run you about $35. So this is the band's last album with Kevin Moore, who's one of the founding members on keyboards. It was met with a lot of mixed reviews when this album came out. But I think a lot of people over the years have kind of warmed up to this album. I think it's even better than a lot of the critics said back when they came out. You've also got Falling Into Infinity, which was released in 97. It was their 4th studio album, also on clear vinyl, also 2 LP release. Going to run you about $35. So after Dream Theater released Awake, and it didn't do commercially as well as their first couple of albums, there was a lot of pressure from the label on this new album to do, I guess, more of like a radio-friendly kind of album. And the band, I think, did incorporate some of that in this album. But if you actually like listen to the lyrics of this album, a lot of these songs are about how much they hate their label, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And then the 4th and final Dream Theater album coming out is Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. So this came out back in 99. It was their 5th studio album, also on clear vinyl, also going to run you $25. Also a 2 LP release. So this album is actually from a track off of Images and Words. This is the first Dream Theater album I ever listened to. Like I said, this came out in 99. It was probably a good couple of years after this, probably 2000, 2001, the first time I listened to it. But I was really impressed. I'm still not a huge Dream Theater fan, but this is the album that I kind of started getting me into some of their music. There's also Special Beat Service by the English Beat coming out this week. This came out back in 82. It was their 3rd studio album. It's going to run you about $25. Commercially, it didn't do nearly as well as their first couple of albums. And it got a lot of really mixed reviews. I think it's one of those albums where I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. It's one, I don't think it's nearly their best album, but it's definitely one worth checking out. For $25, it's not a bad one to grab either. So this next one's kind of interesting, though. This is Fleetwood Mac live at the record plant. So this was recorded back in '74 in San Francisco. It's got running about $35. This is an album just before Fleetwood Mac absolutely imploded. Shortly after Bob Welch would leave the band, he'd be replaced with Lindsey Buckingham. I guess the rest is kind of history. But it's really interesting to go back through and listen to this album because it's a snapshot in time for Fleetwood Mac. And it was the end of that great early period from the band. Rhino is also releasing 3 Ramones albums this week. The first one was Too Tough to Die, released in '84. It was their 8th studio album. It's going to $25. So this is the band's first album with Richie on drums. And it's much more of a stripped down, straightforward, like return to the earlier sound from the band. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of their best '80s albums. You got that coming out. You also got Halfway to Sanity, released in '87. It was their 10th studio album. Also going to range you $25. This is an album I did not like for a really, really long time. I would say it's probably been within the last, 4 or 5 years that I started kind of warming up to it a little bit, but it's still probably my least favorite album from at least the '80s period from that band. And then the third and final Ramones album is Brain Drain, released back in '89. It was their 11th studio album. It's going about $25. So this is the band's last album with Dee Dee, and I think it's easily their most underrated album. It is an album that, it's known for the song Pet Sematary, but there's so many other great tracks on here. And it's one that, I'd probably put up there. It's probably one of my top 5 or 6 albums from the band. And then the last 2 releases from Rhino this week are both ZZ Top albums. The first one was Fandango, came out back in '75. It's going to run about $40. This is all newly remastered. This is a really interesting album, the way it's created. It's kind of like Ummagumma from Pink Floyd, where the first half is all live material, second half is studio material. The only difference is Ummagumma is a horrible album and Fandango is not. So that's the first one from ZZ Top. And then the second one is Tejas. Came out back in 1976. It was their 5th studio album. It's going to run you about $40. This is one of those ZZ Top albums I've never listened to. And it's a band, ZZ Top is a band that I've only kind of casually listened to over my life. And they're a band that I've never really given a shot to, and I definitely need to go back through. I know a lot of people love this album, love a lot of the earlier stuff also. So, they're a band that I've got on my list I need to check out. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. Like I said, it's not a huge week as far as new releases go. It's only 6 albums that are coming out, but a lot of stuff from Rhino coming out. I've already got a couple of them on pre-order. We'll see what I end up grabbing this week, but let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.